Right then, in the words made famous by Arnold Schwarzenegger, I am back. As I have been for the last couple of days, bringing you the latest updates from Barbados, right outside the Kensington Oval. Today is match day -1, so the final preparation ahead of the Super 8 game. And truth be told, the tournament really starts now for the Indian team. They've had it a bit easy in the first round, and then because of rain delays and no practice and no game last time, they could put their feet up, relax, but they've been hard at work the last couple of days leading into the Super 8s, which, as you know, is going to be very, very hectic going forward. Okay, what you see behind me, as I mentioned, that's the Kensington Oval, that's the ground. Right now, just to my right, the Indian team is practicing. Should I be saying Indian team? It's a 50-50. Why I say that? Because while members of the Indian team have come, if I tell you the number of people that have come, that's why you'll understand why I'm in a bit of a doubt to call it an Indian team. So you only have 3 Indian players that have turned up. Out of them, 2 of them unlikely to be taking a part in the Afghanistan game. That is Yashasvi Jaiswal and Rinku Singh. Rinku Singh, as you know, is not even part of the 15. Yashasvi, unlike to get a game versus Afghanistan. The only member of the Indian team that is going to be playing the game versus Afghanistan and is here for practice is Rishabh Pant. And that's no surprise, because the last 2 days there were optional training sessions, but the entire team turned up. Rishabh Pant wasn't there yesterday, so we were expecting him to come. Remember, certain players like to practice just a day before the game. Certain players like to take a day off just before the game. So as you can see, majority of the team has taken a day off, but Rishabh Pant has come to have a bit of a hit in the nets. So that's about India's practice. Afghanistan also, remember, just half of their team really turned up, not the entire team. And that's interesting because yesterday they had arrived and the practice schedule was there for them to come out here and practice, but the team decided to cancel practice. So they've effectively not had a practice session after their final game in the first round stage, which was against West Indies, the game that they lost. After that, they've not had a full-fledged practice session. They had one today, but only the 50% or close to 50% of the team really turned up. But that's also all right. Hectic it's been for them traveling, so they decided to take it easy. And remember, it's a day game tomorrow. But this particular video is about the Indian team press conference and the Afghanistan team's press conference. The Afghanistan team, you had coach Jonathan Trott come in, and for the Indian team, you had the Indian coach in Rahul Dravid come in. So both coaches were there to address the media ahead of the game. Let's talk about the Indian coach first in Rahul Dravid, and that's the most important bit to come out of the press conference. Are we to make that the Indian team is going to be playing Kuldeep Yadav in this game? Well, if you were to read between the lines, it may suggest so. It's not 100%, but may suggest so. Let me give you a bit of a detailed background behind that. Rahul Dravid was asked about Kuldeep Yadav twice. Once about bringing in a spinner, a wrist spinner, because wrist spinners have done well against Afghanistan. Wrist spinners may do well here at the Kensington Oval. So Rahul Dravid was asked about that. And the second time he was asked in specific about Kuldeep Yadav. On both occasions, he kind of said that they may be tempted to play Kuldeep Yadav. Firstly, he said, see, there is a reason why we've picked the squad that we have. There is a reason why we've had those members of the squad and why we picked 4 spinners firstly and why we picked 2 wrist spinners. So he said there's a reason, and the reason is that we're looking to play them in a game or 2. Now, that is the first indication that they may be thinking. And listen, when he was asked about playing a wrist spinner, when he was asked about getting another spinner, he could have categorically denied it, but he did not. He said, yes, there is a reason, we could be looking into it, and that probably is a sign that they are contemplating getting in a Kuldeep Yadav. Also a reminder, in the 2 practice sessions that the entire team turned up, Kuldeep Yadav was hard at practice. And I mentioned in my earlier videos too, if the Indian team makes even one change into their 11, the first change is going to be bringing a Kuldeep Yadav into the squad. So those are the indications that Rahul Dravid gave, saying fully well that they know Afghanistan have struggled against wrist spinners. They know that spinners might be the way to go forward in pitches that are coming. He also spoke about it being a day game. This is a day game, drier conditions, slower tracks, maybe spinners come into play. So that's the first thing that he talked about. The other thing that Rahul Dravid mentioned, that was very interesting. He was asked about memories of this ground, 1997. You remember India 81 all out, chasing 120 odd. A heartbreak. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Sachin Tendulkar went on to say in his book that it is probably the lowest point of his career. Rahul Dravid was reminded of that particular match and said that, listen, if you do well on this ground here, will it ease the pain away from that game? And he started laughing. He said, definitely not. Firstly, he says, I've forgotten what happened there. But even if we were to win here, that will not take away from the fact that we were 80 odd all out. And I know I kind of agree with him. I remember watching that game on TV. That can nowhere be compared. That heartbreak can nowhere be compared to how good or bad the Indian team does here in Barbados. That's the other thing that he spoke about. He spoke about Afghanistan's strength. One very interesting point that he made was that, listen, Afghanistan in Test cricket, in ODI cricket, maybe a less experienced side, but in T20 they are a very experienced side. He went on to say that probably even more experienced than the Indian team, considering a lot of their players play T20 cricket all across the globe. Let's not forget, some of them even play at the Caribbean Premier League, so they must be used to the kind of conditions that are on offer here. So he spoke about the Afghanistan threat. He was asked about whether India will attack their pacers, because spinners are their strength, so attack their pacers. And he reminded everyone, saying that, listen, even the pacers are experienced. In Naveenul Haq, Fazal Haq Farooqi, two experienced pacers. Let's not forget, Fazal Haq Farooqi is the highest wicket taker of the tournament so far, if I'm not mistaken. So he said, no, that's the other thing that they've kept in mind. So that's what came out of the Indian press conference. In terms of Afghanistan, well, Jonathan Trott spoke about that last match that India-Afghanistan had, nail-biter. It finished in 2 super overs. He said that my memory of that game is that we should have won that game. That happened in January in Bengaluru. So spoke about that game. He spoke about his bowling unit. He also stressed on the same fact as Rahul Dravid did about his fast bowlers, saying everyone is talking about our spinners, our fast bowlers have also done well. He spoke about the familiarity that a lot of Afghanistan players play in the IPL. How does that help them or benefit them in this game? He said it worked both ways. One, their players are familiar with Indian players, so they can plan. But he also spoke about how Indian players are now familiar with a lot of Afghan players and Afghan bowlers in particular, and so they will be able to play them better. So it works both ways is something that Jonathan Trott spoke about. I asked him about that last game where they were absolutely hammered by West Indies. What did they learn from them, and how can they put that game behind them? And he said that game was a lesson. And in fact, he says, I look at that game positively because it gave them a wake-up call. It made them realize that the gap now is reducing, and in Super 8s, there will be tougher games. And that was a learning with which they will be able to play better in Super 8s, because they know that one player, and he spoke about Nicholas Pooran, one player can take the game away from them. So they've realized, they've spoken about that game in a positive manner, where they've decided that one player, they just need one of their players to have a good day, even against a team like India, and they can beat them. So that's what came from the press conference. In terms of what I think will be the playing 11, in terms of what the pitch is like, I will do another video, a detailed video previewing this game, because I did have a close look at the pitch. I walked right up to the playing area and stood on top of the pitch and had a closer look. So that's coming up in the preview. What I think could be India's 11, that's also coming up in the preview. But this video is mostly about what India did in the practice session and what the Indian coach Rahul Dravid had to say in the press conference, and what did the Afghanistan team have to say in the press conference. So that's that for now. Just another bit from Barbados, Kensington Oval. Very hot today, very hot today. If the game is to be played in these hot conditions, it's going to really test teams, both teams. Remember, it's a day game again. It's going to test you, humid, energy sapping. And even though the temperature here doesn't go around 40-45, which is happening in north of India, this is mid-30s, but because the sun being here, humidity levels are very high, and that is really energy sapping. So it's going to test the players. The other thing that you must have noticed is the wind. So there's a breeze that blows, and this is the interesting bit. The breeze will allow some lateral movement. So if you see the stadium behind me, you'll see big gaps. You see big gaps between stands. In fact, one area of the stadium doesn't even have stands. So it will allow the breeze, the cross breeze to go through the ground, and that interestingly will also help fast bowlers. So it's going to be a catch-22 situation. You go with your 3 fast bowler India has been going in, or do you get in a rest spinner, Kuldeep Yadav, something that the coach was hinting at. That will be interesting for the Indian team to see. Other than that, dimensions of the ground, this is the biggest ground, historical ground, so 6 hitting won't be that easy, but the outfield is much faster here compared to what we saw in US. So there are a lot of boundaries one coming here. The Indian players will relish it. The Indian players will relish the opportunity of getting a lot of boundaries, because quick outfield. And just a sneak peek about the pitch, I think it's going to be a good batting pitch. I think it's going to be a belter, and I think that is something that the Indian players would be looking forward to. You're speaking about Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma not into amongst the runs. They'll enjoy these conditions. They'll enjoy this surface here. So yeah, that's the latest from Kensington Oval in Barbados. Back with a 5-point preview, a crisp 5-point preview about the game. Check that video out, and thank you once again, guys. I can't thank you enough, the kind of love that you're showing to our content. And please, another reminder, subscribe to Sports Today. Give us a like if you enjoy our content. And for some of your cricket loving friends who haven't really caught up with our content and the latest from Barbados, do share this video with them. For the moment, bye bye, take care. Nikhil Naz signing off.